Hello, once again, and welcome to another sentence construction lesson. So, today we're going to be talking about the basic connecting words, and this is the first part. So, we're going to have the second part next week, and this is not going to be the last time we're going to be talking about this because we are going to cover the advanced connecting words much later during our course. Okay, let's get started. So there are three things that we will be talking about. The first one is why do we have to use connecting words? And then we'll jump right into the connecting words, basic connecting words or transition words that we would be learning in this lesson. And we're going to be talking about the group activity that we will have for tomorrow's class. Let's get started. So, why use connecting words? To answer that question, I want us to look at this paragraph, which I have edited a little bit. I think you will notice it, but I took it from Hudson Taylor's biography and specifically from chapter 2. Let me read it first. And as I do, I want you to open your eyes and observe what might be wrong with this paragraph. Okay, back at home, Hudson Taylor was feeling particularly bored. He knew that if he didn't look busy, his sister would pester him to play paper dolls with him. His father would find some good chore for him to do. Hudson decided to take a good book to his favorite hideaway. He couldn't seem to find anything that interested him in the bookshelf. He'd read all the good books. He knew all passages from many of them by heart. He spotted a religious booklet he had not seen before. Of course, this story sounds familiar, right? This was taken from Hudson Taylor's conversion story. And this is one of our favorite parts in Hudson Taylor's biography. So the question is, what did you notice? Is there anything weird about this paragraph? Yeah, you might want to read it again for yourself. Since we know the story, it makes sense a little bit, right? We know the events that happened during that time and they are in this paragraph. But then, can you notice that the sentences are not well connected to each other? And there are some gaps, missing gaps in the story. There are some details that you think should be there but are not there. And most importantly, when you read this, you can't really make sense of this story. It's like, I can't understand the story. How much more for someone who has not read this part of the story? Right? So if we who are familiar with the story think that there is a problem or we can't make full sense of the story, how much more those who have not read the story? Okay, do you see the point I'm trying to make? Do you see where I'm getting at? Now, compare it to this paragraph. On that same afternoon, back at home, Hudson was feeling particularly bored. He knew, though, that if he didn't look busy, his sister Louisa would pester him to play paper dolls with him. With her. Or worse, his father would find some chore for him to do. So Hudson decided to take a good book to his favorite hideaway, but he couldn't seem to find anything that interested him on the bookshelf. He'd read all the good books until he knew passages from many of them by heart. It was then that he spotted a religious booklet he had not seen before, and we know from the story that that religious booklet would be instrumental for him to become a Christian. Okay, now what can you notice? The first part or the first paragraph was edited. I took some words out of it, especially transition words. But the next paragraph, the second one, is the original. So can you see that you can make more sense of the story of what's happening because of these transition words? Let's look at them. The first one is on that same afternoon. A very important transition word. Why? Because remember that the previous paragraph was talking about his mother being away and praying for him, right? That so the author is trying to emphasize that his mother, while his mother was away praying for him, back at home, on that same afternoon, God was answering her prayers, right? So this is necessary to make that connection, to make a connection between this paragraph and the previous paragraph. So that's what transitions do. Yeah, they provide smooth connection so that the flow of the story would be smooth. Okay, let's move on. So, yeah, on that same afternoon back at home, Hudson was feeling particularly bored. Okay. He knew, though, that if he didn't look busy, his little sister Louisa would pester him to play paper dolls with her. Okay, now we've got that transition, though. Now, what is it telling us? What's the connection? So, because of this, because the author included this transition word, though, we can see that he was feeling particularly bored, and if he didn't look busy, this is what's gonna happen. This is what's gonna happen. So he's trying to make a connection between this and the previous sentence, and it would also be it would make more sense when you read further about what Hudson tried to do next, right? Okay, another transition is this one. Or worse, his father would find some chore for him to do. Okay, so there are two possibilities. So Hudson was feeling bored, and there are two possibilities. His sister might ask him to play, not just ask, but pester him to play with her. Or worse, even worse than that, so Hudson's father would tell him, "Hey, you don't have anything to do? Okay, I will give you something to do." And Hudson, of course, didn't like that. So, what's the next thing he did? Yeah, another transition here. As a result, so Hudson decided to take a good book to his favorite hideaway. So he was feeling bored, and if he was not doing anything, then his sister and his father would make him do something that he didn't like. And as a result, he took off so that he could do something that he wanted to do, right? Now compare, okay, let's stop right here and compare it with this one. When you read this, there's a lot of questions, right? You couldn't make sense of, okay, he knew that if he didn't look busy, his sister would pester him to play, his father would find some good chore for him to do. It's like, what? What are you talking about here? It's not clear. It's not clear. So you couldn't make sense. You cannot establish the connection between the sentences. All because you don't have transition words. So you can see how important they are in making your story clear and understandable. All right, let's move on. Another one is, but he couldn't seem to find anything that interested him on the bookshelf. Now, if this were not here, but this is what could happen. You can see it's like, why? Here, Hudson decided to take a good book to his favorite hideaway. He couldn't seem to find anything that interested him in the bookshelf. It's like you're just telling what happened at that time, but you were not connecting the events well. You're not connecting them at all. So you couldn't make sense of those events. So that's why transition words are very important. And then after that, yeah, he'd read all the good books until he knew passages from many of them by heart. It was then, so as he was looking for some books, it was then that he spotted a religious booklet he had not seen before. Now, a very important transition. Sorry. A very. Okay, I messed it up. A very important transition because if you look at the original, okay, let me just get to that point. There you go. If you look at, not the original, sorry, if you look at the paragraph which doesn't have any transition, you can see here, he knew all passages from many of them by heart. He spotted a religious book that he had not seen before. What? Yeah, that would be that question. Like, what are you trying to say here? I cannot understand. But then, when you have this transition right here, you can make sense of how this sentence is connected to the previous sentence. It was during that time that he was looking for a good book that might interest him, that he found this booklet that will forever change his life, right? So do you see where I'm getting at? Okay. Now there's one more thing I wanted to highlight here. Why did I have to highlight this? The use of semicolon. Okay, you can see here that there is no transition word that's connecting this sentence, but he couldn't seem to find anything that interested him on the bookshelf. And the sentence after it, he'd read all the good books until he knew passages from many of them by heart. Okay, why did the author do something like this? Why didn't he include, or why didn't they include a transition? Well, you can do this once in a while when you see a semicolon right here, or a semicolon connecting two clauses or two sentences. That means that the connection is so obvious that you don't need a transition. Okay, so this is an advanced stuff. I don't want to be talking too much about this one here. We'll talk more about that later on. But you can see that for the most part, the authors were using transition words, connecting words to make the story clearer. But in this case, he felt like, oh, maybe it's a good thing not to include a transition here, so let them guess the connection. Actually, they don't need to guess. We don't need to guess because it's obvious, right? So if you see that the connection is so obvious between two sentences, then just use a semicolon. All right. Now let's summarize what we found out so far. So why do we have to use connecting words? First, it connects the sentences and ideas within your paragraph, making the flow of your writing smooth. So that's basically the purpose of connecting words. They connect your sentences. And one of the qualities of a good paragraph or a good essay is what we call coherence. Coherence. I didn't write it here. coherence. It means connectedness. Connectedness. You want to see that your sentences and your paragraphs and your ideas and your events are well connected to each other. Yeah. So that's the same thing. If you start opening up your eyes, when you read books, you can see that this is one quality, one important quality that you can notice in the books that you're reading. Every sentence, every idea, every event, every information is connected to each other, right? The author didn't just drop those events without trying to connect them to the other parts of the paragraph or the chapter, whatever. Okay? Also, the second one is it as we have seen in the example, it gives additional information. Connecting words give additional information. And if I may say, necessary information. That way, you won't be leaving your readers in the dark. What I mean is, they won't be guessing what could you mean in this paragraph or in this sentence. Yeah, so it's for clarity. Okay, now that we know why we should use connecting words, let's move on to the specific connecting words that we will be learning in this lesson. So, basic connecting words, part 1. There are 4 categories: showing opposition or unexpected results, showing cause and effect, expressing purpose, and expressing result. Let's look at them one by one. So for showing opposition or unexpected results, we have 5 conjunctions or connecting words: but, although, even though, and however. The first one is but. I want us to look at this sentence. I felt he was wrong, but I decided to trust him. This is something that's very familiar to us. So we use but when we are talking about opposition or unexpected result. In this case, it's an unexpected result because if you felt that he was wrong, then what's the rightful response? Or I shouldn't say rightful, what would be the expected response? You wouldn't trust him, right? But then in this case, you chose to trust him, and that's quite unexpected. Therefore, we have to use but. Now, look at the next one. The same exact sentence expressed differently. Although I felt he was wrong, I decided to trust him. The same exact meaning, but we can see that instead of using but, we used although. But nothing's changed, right? It's still the same meaning. Now, what's the difference? You might be asking, what's the difference between although and but? Well, there's no difference in terms of meaning, but then we put them or we use them in different parts of the sentence. So for but, we use it for the result. Like, look at this. I felt it was wrong. This is the main part of your sentence. And for the unexpected result, we used but. But in this case, I felt he was wrong. Yeah, that's the main part of the sentence. Not grammatically, okay? Not grammatically. We'll get more to that later on. I felt he was wrong, but then the result is here. I decided to trust him. So you don't put although in the result. You put it in the cause. For a lack of a better word, I'd use the cause. But you don't put it in the result, because for the result you use but. So can you see the difference? Now, what about the other ones? Even though and though. Well, Let me break it to you at this point. Although, even though, and though are the same. Yeah, let's make it simple. They have the same meaning and they have the same usage. Let's look at this. Sharon started looking for a new job even though she was currently employed. Okay, the same meaning. So there is an unexpected result. What's the unexpected result? Sharon started looking for a new job. Why is it unexpected? Because she was currently employed, right? You don't look for a job when you're currently employed. Normally. Yeah, so we use even though for that. Now, I can also use although and get this exact same meaning. Sharon started looking for a new job, although she was currently employed. The same thing with though. Now, let's look at though. Though I couldn't understand a word, we had a great time. Okay? Now, what's the result? What's the unexpected result here? Yeah, we had a great time. Right? How can you have a great time without understanding each other? That's why you use though. So the result and then the main part of the sentence or something like the cause. Though I couldn't understand a word. Again, I can substitute although and even though for though and I could get the same meaning. There is an advanced use of though that I don't want to talk about right now. We'll talk more about it later on, but you saw that in the previous example we looked at from Hudson Taylor's biography. Yeah, that if you look back, if you look back to it, you can see that it's being used in a different way. But we will get to that later on. Okay, now let's go to another unexpected result. Another connecting word that we use for opposition or unexpected result, and that is however. So we went to the party last night. However, we were not allowed to get in. There you go. So this is something very familiar to us, right? However is something we use all the time. It's the same. It is the same meaning with but. Yeah, so basically you can substitute however for but. However, even though they are the same, however is more formal than but. Like but we use it casually, right? So just take note of that. You can use them interchangeably, but normally, however, is used in more formal situations. Okay, now there are always two things when we talk about connecting words. One is the form, one is the meaning, sorry, and that's what we talked about. But another important thing that we need to talk about is the form. Can you see the difference among these connecting words when it comes to punctuation, when it comes to the form? Okay, let's start off with but. So you can see that it goes to the second part of the sentence or in the middle part. And before we use but, we have to use a comma. Okay? We have to use a comma. Because but belongs to a category of connecting words, which is what we call coordinating conjunctions. We will get to know that even more next week, but just remember that. Okay, whenever you use but, you have to use a comma before it. What about although, even though, and though? They are the same when it comes to usage and when it comes to punctuation. We don't use a comma before it if it is in the middle part of the sentence. But if it is in the first part of the sentence, just like, although I felt he was wrong, comma, I decided to trust him. Though I couldn't understand a word, comma, We had a great time. Okay? So that's how you use it. If it's in the first part of the sentence, use a comma. Now, however, is quite different. So for however, you end the sentence. Don't use a comma. That will be illegal in English. It's a crime. So it's even though they are the same, they have the same meaning, but and however, you don't use them in the same way when it comes to punctuation. So with but, you can use a comma before, but with however, you have to use a full stop, or another option you have is semicolon. You can use a semicolon. Okay, so you can see that even though they have the same meaning, technically, they are used differently when it comes to punctuation. More on that next week. Okay? We will be talking about the three categories, important categories of conjunctions or connecting words. But you are looking at them right now. These are examples of those three categories. Okay, so we are done with the first one. Let's move on to the next one. This time, let's talk about connecting words that we use for cause and effect. We have three: because, since, and as. All right. Actually, it's more like just cause, not really effect. Let's look at this sentence. Henry felt he needed to take some time off because he had been working so hard. Why did Henry feel he needed to take some time off? Because he had been working so hard. Okay, that's all. That's something we're very familiar with. Notice that I didn't use a comma. Yeah, some books would do. And I don't understand why they do. I think even some versions of the Bible would do that. And I don't have a problem if you do that. That's acceptable. There are different standards when it comes to using a comma or not using a comma before because or before other conjunctions. So I'll let you off the hook if you use a comma. It's up to you. Since you need some help, I'll come over this afternoon. Now, you need a comma if it is at the beginning of the sentence. If you put because at the beginning of the sentence, just like this, then you will need a comma. Why will you come over this afternoon? Since you need some help or because you need some help. Okay, so almost the same meaning. There is a difference. I'm going to talk about that later. Now, the last one is as. The parents paid for extra lessons as the children were very gifted. They felt like the children would or the children deserve those lessons, those extra lessons because they were gifted. That could be another way to put it. Now, this might be surprising for you, but we use as not only to talk about time or we normally use it for time or for comparison, right? She is as beautiful as her mother. But we also use as to talk about the cause or reason. Okay, now, this begs the question, what is the difference between because, since, and as? All right. Well, there is a slight difference. When you use because, the emphasis is on the cause, on the reason. Like in the first sentence, when you say Henry felt he needed to take some time off because he had been working so hard. Now you want to emphasize that he had been working so hard. You want to emphasize that reason. Okay? Whereas when it comes to since and as, you want to emphasize the result. It's like the reason is not as important as the result. Okay, this is in terms of meaning, huh? It's like, I'll come over this afternoon. That's the most important thing I'm telling you right now. I will come over this afternoon. And then it's like you mention the reason in passing. That's what it's like. Since you need some help, I'll come over this afternoon. But the most important thing you want to say is that I'll come over this afternoon. The parents paid for extra lessons. That's the most important thing. You want to emphasize, and the reason becomes like secondary in terms of emphasis. Okay? Yeah, you can think of some examples. In fact, after this video, I'm going to be asking you to write some of your sentences. So take note of this difference, okay? Now, let's move on to, okay, there's no difference when it comes to form. I already talked about that. If it comes in the middle of the sentence, just like the first example and the third example, then don't use a comma. But I'll also be okay with that if you use a comma, because some books are doing that. But what is not okay if you don't use a comma, if you put it at the beginning of the sentence, because you want to separate. In English, it's very important to separate the main part of the sentence. I always talk about this. Remember when we have YNK or NYNK exercise, I always tell you to focus on the main part of the sentence and not to touch the other part of the sentence. So that's the reason for the comma. You want to separate the main part of the sentence from what we call technically subordinating clause, or the lesser important part of the sentence. Now, this is in terms of form. Huh? This is in terms of form. That's I'm not talking about the meaning. Yeah, so you have to use a comma if your conjunction or your connecting word is at the beginning, especially when you're using because, since, and as. Okay. Enough said. Let's move on to number 3, which is expressing purpose, and we only have one. We only have one for this lesson, because actually there are more. There are several ways to express purpose, but this is the most basic one. So that, yes, you're very familiar with it. Let's look at the sentences. The students are working very hard these days so that they can perform well in their test next week. So that answers the question, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of the students for working very hard these days? So that they can perform well in their test next week. Makes sense. It can also answer the question why sometimes. Like in this case, why are the students working very hard these days? Because they want to perform well in their test next week. There you go. Did you see the change I did? And you can just answer that so that they can perform well in their test next week. Okay, another sentence. The government imposed a national lockdown so that the COVID cases would go down. What's the purpose? Why did they do that? So that the COVID cases would go down. I see. Okay. Now, there is two things that I want you to notice here when it comes to form. Do you see any comma? No. Yeah, you don't use a comma. So that belongs to the same category as because, since, and as. You don't use a comma before them. Another thing, the second one is, do you see how consistent our tenses are? Or our tense is. The students are working. This is present, right? And then in the other part of the sentence, you can see can perform is your verb, which is present or future, right? Now look at the other example. The government imposed. So there you go. This is past tense. And what's the equivalent or what's the tense in the other part of the sentence? In the so that part of the sentence? Would. Would. So would is the past tense of will, right? So if you used past tense in one part of the sentence, then you should also use past tense in the other part of the sentence. You want to make your tenses consistent as much as possible. There are cases when you don't need to do that, but in most cases you have to. Okay? Another thing. Did you also notice that in the first categories and first two categories, and in this category, and even in the next category, it's going to be the same thing. There is always, whenever you use these connecting words, there is always a subject and a verb, right? So you have the main part of the sentence right here, the students, subject, are working, verb. And in the second part of the sentence, where the connecting word is, you also have another set of subject and verb. They and can perform. Yeah, so you have to make sure that when you use these connecting words, you have your own set of subject and verb. Okay, let's move on to the last one. This time it's about result. Now what do we use? We have two. So and therefore. Let's look at the examples. The students passed their exams, so they were quite happy. And rightfully so, right? So that's the result. What's the result here? They were quite happy. And what is the... It's like, what's the cause? The students passed their exams. So if you're going to flip this sentence, and if you have to use because, it will become, they were quite happy. Why? Because they passed their exams. Yeah, so there are several ways you can manipulate the sentence and still arrive at the same meaning. God has blessed me thus far, or so far. So what? Therefore, I will praise him. I will praise him. Now, why would you praise him? Because he has blessed me thus far. By the way, when we use this pattern, we haven't talked about this yet, but I just want to talk about it quickly. Has blessed means it started in the past and it's still going on until now. Especially you have thus far, so far. We use that to talk about actions that had started in the past and is still going on until now. Okay. Therefore, I will praise him. So there you go. That's how we express result. Now, do you notice something strange in the way we use them, especially when it comes to punctuation? So with so, it's like but. We have to use a comma before it. Okay? They belong to the same category. We call that coordinating conjunctions. But you don't need to remember that right now. We'll be talking about that more next week. And then you also have therefore, which is just like however. You have to end the sentence. And then start with another sentence. And one thing I forgot to mention with however, you have to use a comma after it. So the comma comes after it, not before it. Okay? So please take note of this difference. Even though they have the same meaning, same exact meaning, they are used differently when it comes to punctuation. And by the way, therefore is more formal. It's more formal. You can see this used in the Bible quite often, right? This is more formal. So don't use it in your conversations. If you want to talk about result in your casual conversations, you can use so. But if you're preaching, oh, sorry about that. If you're preaching, then you can use therefore. Okay, I pressed the button accidentally. Sorry about that. Now, what's the difference between so and so that? A lot of people are confused with it. And some grammar books are also confused with it. They are often confused because they're very similar, right? They all have so. But please make this distinction. So is for result, and so that is for purpose. Don't be confused. Don't be confused. So, purpose answers the question why or what's the purpose, and result is like, so what? What happened? Okay, I think the confusion comes from the fact that, okay, I'll be confusing you a little bit. So can also be used as a shorthand for so that. Yeah, we can see that in speaking and we can also see that in writing. So can act as a purpose also. We also use it to talk about purpose. Look at this example. He's studying in IGSL so he can prepare for his future ministry. It should have been, or it could have been, so that he can prepare for his future ministry. Right? But then, we have here so. As I said, it can be used as a shorthand for so that. Now, as an English student at this point, I want you to avoid doing that. Okay? Trust me. Avoid doing that for now because I don't want you to be confused. I want you to be able to make that distinction between result and purpose. And why am I saying that? In my experience of teaching English, this has been very confusing. So that would be used by students to talk about result, right? So I want to save you from that kind of confusion. So when you use so, use it for result, and when you use so that, use it for purpose. Just to make that distinction, even though it is possible to use so for in place of so that, I would want you to avoid that for now. Okay? All right, there you go. We are done talking about the 4 categories for the first part of basic connecting words. Now, let us talk about what you're going to do tomorrow. So, again, this is a group activity. I want you to write a story. Yes, another story, 1 to 2 paragraph long, and using one of the storyboards in the next slides. So you can just, I'll show them to you later. What I want you to do is use at least one connecting word from the 4 categories. That means in your paragraphs, I should be able to see those 4 categories: opposition or unexpected results, purpose, cause and effect, and result. Okay? And you may also use other transition words that are not in the 4 categories. Sorry about that. Not in the 4 categories. So you can use when or whatever. The time conjunctions, if you feel that you should use them. And this is in connection to our previous lessons on present and past tense. So I want you to be able to use them, both of them. Okay? So that you can master the difference between the two of them. And these are the storyboards. So you can just choose one. Yeah. And after this video, what I want you to do, you can do this today or tomorrow. It's up to you. I want you to do this sentence structure exercise. It's under writing exercises section. It's a simple. I just want you to write your own examples of these sentences. Okay? And don't forget to download the PDF that comes with this lesson so that you can have a reference. I'll be uploading it in our Slack group, and I've just uploaded it in Moodle. Okay, that ends our lesson for the basic connecting words. See you next week for another lesson.